Welcome into another edition of the In the Paint podcast here on the net, where we break down everything NCAA basketball has to offer. What a weekend. Maybe not the madness that we had anticipated, but we went from 68 last time we talked to y'all. We are now down to 16. And with me, as always, to help break it all down is my friend and co-host, Raider Jim Martinez. You can find Mr. Martinez at Raider Jim 1090. How you doing tonight, sir?
Oh, doing pretty good. I finally lost the 1,000-yard stare and was able to back away from the TV after my Zags lost. But what a great weekend of basketball. It lived up to the hype. And what can I say? We've got 8 more games to go this weekend, and then pretty soon we'll have 4 games to go, and then we play the big one.
Yeah, the madness, the 1 through 4, I think it was the first time since '07 that all top 4 seeds did get through. But I think there was still intrigue. Definitely had to wait for that buzzer beater. I think it was Oregon, Arizona was the last game. So second to last game. But what's interesting is a lot of people like, oh, there were no buzzer beaters. Well, technically, there were no buzzer beaters at all last year. I saw a graphic that the Queen Maryland buzzer beater was the last buzzer beater since Lamont Butler when San Diego State took down Florida Atlantic in the Final Four, or this national semis of the Final Four. I thought it was great, fantastic basketball, and we are going to get into all 4 of the regions. Obviously, both of us. Raider Jim's team lasted a lot longer than mine, and they put forth an effort that was 25 times better than the Aztecs did. But we'll get to that momentarily when we get to those individual regions. Before we do that, with the tournament kind of eating and spitting some of these teams out, the coaching carousel has finally gotten rolling. Kind of similar to what you see in the NFL, where a team gets eliminated in the wild card or divisional round, and then, okay, here goes the coordinator to here or there. This a little different. The lateral moves are kind of up in terms of job prestige. Just a few that I had marked down. Ben McCollum going from Drake to Iowa. Tough for Drake. Back-to-back years they are losing their head coach. Niko Medvedev, what an incredible run Colorado State had. They were 3.1 seconds away from a Sweet 16. He is heading from Colorado State to Minnesota. And Darian DeVries, he is heading to from West Virginia to Indiana. More on that in a moment. Will Wade, I didn't have this written down, but just because it, slipped my mind. But Will Wade, he is heading from McNeese State to NC State. Tough look for McNeese out in the tournament. And then one that just flashed up, through on my purview like 15 minutes ago, and maybe nationally won't make a ton of waves. But Josh Pastner, he is taking over at UNLV. And Josh Pastner, for me personally, it's been a while since I've heard that name. You might remember him. He was he took over the Memphis program after John Calipari headed to Kentucky. And my question always was Josh Pastner a good coach, or was he just at the right place at the right time, kind of enjoying the Coach Cal recruiting exploits without the modern day transfer portal? But we'll see. UNLV bringing in Josh Pastner. But as I said, more on that Darian DeVries move. Some drama behind that. Obviously, it's been a tough week or two for West Virginia basketball. They get left out of the tournament when they probably should have been let in. And then they lose their head coach and their best player, by the way, both named DeVries. Darian, the coach, Tucker, the player. This was what Drake went through last year. However, there's a little bit more under the surface. Some of the internet sleuths have put 2 and 2 together and done a little mapping for us and realized that, hey, check this out. West Virginia, Indiana, they were both in the Bahamas for a tournament in November, December. And then very shortly after that, Mike Woodson announced that he will not be returning at Indiana. And then to kind of continue it, and we didn't know about it till now, but Tucker DeVries, the best player for West Virginia and probably going to be the best player for Indiana next year, hurts himself after 8 games. And why is that relevant? Well, the threshold for a red shirt is 9 games. If you play in 9 games, you are not eligible for a red shirt. 8 is 1 less than 9 for all of us less than math savvy people out there. So there are a lot of people that are doing the inquisitor face, wondering, is there more on the surface? But Raider Jim, your thoughts overall on the coaching carousel as we kind of see. And then one final thing, Villanova job still hasn't been taken, but I think most people believe that is just until Maryland is eliminated. And then Kevin Willard will go there. That's just what most people are saying. But Raider Jim, your thoughts on the coaching carousel as of now?
Yeah, I think I said it last week. I'm sure there are people already scripting the next ESPN 30 for 30 to go over all the underhandedness that's taking place. And as I said to you before you hit record, it's just become so blatant now. Everything. It's just, does it take a little bit off the game? I think it can, and I think it will more and more as the seasons pass. This thing with the DeVries deal, that is just, wow. That is hard to believe that people can sit there and smirk and go, what? There's nothing going on here. I just recently rewatched, because it's something that I will watch, every now and then when I just have a couple extra hours. I watched Pony Excess about Southern Methodist University, the Eric Dickerson days, and all the trouble they got into, and all the, you're paying the players, you're doing this, it's illegal, it's illegal, it's illegal. Wow. It truly was. And they did deserve to be punished to the extent that the NCAA wanted to punish them. But it's like this has become the Wild West.
Mm-hmm.
There are no more rules. How are these kids supposed to commit? Or how could there be an expectation for an athlete to commit when the coaches can't commit?
Exactly.
I mean, Coach McCollum, you and I were both saying what a great guy he is, and he is a great guy, and he is a great coach. He sat in somebody's living room, though, 14 months ago and said, best thing you can do is have your kid come play basketball for me at Drake. I won't be there the next year, but send him to Drake. Is Ben Sturtz going to stay around, or is he going to go now? Those types of things. And so very, very interesting. There is another one that flashed up. I don't know if you saw it or not. Sean Miller going to Texas.
Thank you. That was a very weird one, because and then this is more just like the universe acting in weird ways rather than nefarious actions. This was
right,
because I didn't realize Rodney Terry got fired until I saw that Sean Miller got hired, because I went, hold on a second. And then you dive a little deeper and it's like, oh, wait, Xavier eliminated Texas and Sean Miller. So right. Xavier's over here like, yeah, we win the play-in game. And Texas is like, cool, congratulations, go enjoy Iowa State. We're going to take your coach. But yeah, that was an interesting one. Sean Miller back into that. And the Will Wade situation, obviously Will Wade, you want to talk about of all the kind of dark clouds that we have around sports, Will Wade's very similar to the kind of Pete Carroll of the kind of somewhat underhanded tactics of recruiting and stuff like that. And if I'm being completely honest, some of the things that we see coaches and athletes doing that are actually illegal, like in a court of law, like you go to jail for these things if you don't have millions of dollars. You compare that to, okay, Will Wade might have done some things at LSU. I don't know. And then the way he handled the NC State, I mean, he said, I'm going to NC State before McNeese State played. And it didn't matter. They went out and got the job done. Unfortunately, it did end in the round of 32. But in an odd sort of way, I kind of respect the way Will Wade did it and said, yeah, I am going. Because it's difficult for me. I've said it multiple times as someone who is a believer in the free market. If you provide a service, someone is going to pay you for it. And if someone is going to pay you more for that same service, you have to go, like, you know what I mean? Like, if for your family's sake, and obviously there are limits, $1 billion versus $1 billion and 1,000. Okay, well, maybe that's not the case. But the difference between a Drake salary and an Iowa salary is going to be significant. And similarly to the NIL side of things, if you're a kid at one of these schools and Duke or Kentucky come a calling and they say, look, we need a bench player. You can maybe stay at Iona, you can stay at Monmouth, and you can start and you can make your $25,000 NIL, whatever it is, or you can come here, be on the bench, and we'll pay you $1 million for it. Again, like, it's difficult. As a sports fan, I go, no, stay all 4 years. But also as a human being, someone that has to pay bills. And, so my thing, and I think you would probably agree, and I think most would agree, there needs to be rules in place. The problem is the entity that has been tasked with putting the rules in place are corrupt. All right. That at the very least, the NCAA does some nefarious things with the money and the way things happen. And that's the problem. Unfortunately, I believe the only way you do this is if you get out of the NCAA and you turn this into a Alabama University almost like a club team. And these kids are signing actual contracts. And we are going to talk NIL probably next week, just because we are going to probably have to fill in some time and we'll get deeper into this. But we saw it in football and now we're seeing it in basketball. The transfer portal opened 24 hours ago. There are 16 teams still playing for a national championship. Yeah. Scottie Pippen's son has already told Michigan, good luck in wherever they're going to go. I don't know. I don't have their bracket or their location in front of me, but I'm going to the transfer portal. Y'all are on your own. And at the same time, if you are, I forget Pippen's name, it escapes me, but if you do have to get in early, like, again, like, you could sit there and be like, oh, you're leaving your team. But at the same time, some of these kids, they have 4 years to monetize their talents on the basketball court. I don't know. It's very, very difficult. I just think there needs to be rules that go into place and actual consequences for breaking those rules. Hopefully very soon we get those. But a casualty, I don't know if you saw this, Raider Jim, this actually was up on my homepage when St. Peter's of Pennsylvania, who played in the play-in game, was a fantastic, might have been the best game, was Alabama State, St. Peter's of Pennsylvania. They haven't, they are moving all the way down to Division III athletics. Wow. And the part, or the reason was NIL. We cannot compete at NIL. And at that point, you do wonder if, because this is a tournament team and they were under 500, but still a lot of exposure the other night, probably more money they made the other night than they have in the first 3 months of the year. So really, really sad to kind of see that. And I mean, as we do kind of shift our focus now into the actual games, we talked about kind of the lack of madness. I think there was some madness, maybe not madness, let's call it chaos, but definitely what we are missing is Cinderella. Because if you want to sit here and tell me that John Calipari and a Power 5 seed is your Cinderella,
right? Okay.
If that's how you want to do it, I might want to. I mean, I think Michigan would probably be a closer Cinderella than Arkansas, but okay. But anyways, and there have been a lot of talk of wondering, is the day of Cinderella over? I think that's an overreaction. I really do. It's 1 year. It's not ideal, but there are problems. I just don't know if it's that to the point where we'll never see a mid-major in the Sweet 16. I think that's a bit dramatic, but with that being said, time to dive into the regions. We're going to start top left. This is the South region. We did see Auburn come out. Not really a big surprise. Creighton pushed a little bit, but Auburn, for the most part, took care of business. Michigan, woo! First 5 minutes against UC San Diego, they looked like they were going to run them out. And UC San Diego fought back valiantly. Michigan ended up getting the job done. And then Michigan took down Texas A&M. Down on the bottom side of that, Tom Izzo, goodness gracious, he is inevitable. They had some trouble with New Mexico, and they had some trouble with Bryant as well early on. Excuse me. But Michigan State, they will face Ole Miss, who shocked me. I thought North Carolina was going to handle them, and I surely thought Iowa State was going to take care of business. And Ole Miss really dominated both of those games. So Auburn, Michigan Auburn, Michigan on the top, and then Ole Miss, Michigan State on the bottom. Got SEC versus Big Ten all over this one. Raider Jim, your thoughts on the South?
Yeah, again, you're talking about Cinderellas or the lack thereof. Yale, there was a time the last couple of years we would have seen Yale advance as a 13 and been happy and not that surprised because that's just the way the stars lined up, but that wasn't going to happen this year. Michigan is playing really good ball right now, but I will tell you, in this bracket, the more you watch Auburn, the more you just kind of shake your head. And we'll see it too when we get down to the West, is where Florida's lined up. My goodness, they just look like a juggernaut that it is not going to go down easy if they go down at all. The Ole Miss Michigan State game is going to be one fantastic game. This could be the game of the bracket this coming weekend, or I think they might be playing Friday. Either way, when they hit the court, that's going to be one you don't want to look away from. I do think that Auburn will prevail when all is said and done. I think Michigan State will be there. If anybody could take down Auburn in this bracket, this side of the bracket, it would be Tom Izzo and Michigan State. I just think Auburn's got too much going right now.
Yeah, I agree with you. These will be Friday. So Michigan State Ole Miss is going to start us off at 7:10 Eastern. And then 30 minutes after that, we will see Auburn and Michigan. So this will be Friday matchups. It was interesting to see New Mexico kind of dismantle Marquette. I didn't have my eye on that game too much just because, I only have one TV. And there's only so much. So, kind of keep an eye on the score bug, and it never really got close enough from full attention.
Because boys just could not, they just couldn't do it.
Yeah.
And it's really not a dig against Marquette. It's just telling you how well the other team was playing.
Yeah. Dent, and his first name escapes me, and I want to call him either Harvey or Bucky, but it's neither of those two. But yeah, he had an incredible game for New Mexico. Unfortunately, as I said, they gave Michigan State pretty much everything they could handle. But Michigan State just too big, too strong. The one thing about Michigan and the X factor are their bigs so incredibly athletic, and the fingerprints of Cinderella are all over. That Florida Atlantic team, the Florida, his name absolutely escapes me. It's just been such a weekend of just craziness. But anyways, and then you also have a few players, obviously Dusty May, Florida Atlantic coach. He brought a couple of his Florida Atlantic players. So the Cinderella is here. It's just they've kind of joined the dark side, if you will. But I really do like Michigan. Unfortunately, that matchup with Auburn, I kind of believe that the Michigan-Auburn Sweet 16 game could be the regional final. I would love to see Michigan State. But if Michigan can take down Auburn, I don't see how Mississippi or Michigan State can get the job done. However, I've been wrong about Mississippi twice now, so who knows? Chris Beard, look, maybe not the best human on the planet, but he's a damn good basketball coach. He's got another team in the Sweet 16. Tom Izzo will be ready for him, though. I think we're going to see Auburn, Michigan State regional final. I think it's going to be an incredible game, but I agree. I picked Michigan State to win it when this all got rolling, or at least this region, I should say. But what I've seen out of Auburn the first two games of this tournament, the worry I had for them coming in has kind of disappeared.
Yeah, Auburn, here we are going into the first round of the Sweet 16. Auburn's playing a very, very good Michigan team who's playing very good basketball right now. Early line, Auburn -8.5. You go down, you drop down, Michigan is only getting a 2.5 point.
Wow. I feel like that plus number for Michigan would be nice. Interesting on that one. And I do want to just, because we are going to get not full team reports, obviously, focus fully on the tournament. Raider Jim will be able to talk about his Zags when we get to the Midwest. Look, the Aztecs were matched up technically in the South. They never even got that far. They got blown out of the building against North Carolina. It was a pretty pitiful effort. Miles Bird, I believe, it was announced, or Bird or Boyd, one of them announced he is entering the transfer portal. No big surprise. Again, you just have to rebuild the team year in and year out. Got to have faith in Brian Dutcher. But as far as I'm concerned, I think San Diego State got lucky that North Carolina, beat them as badly as they did, and was such a lightning rod for controversy, because I still don't think San Diego State should have made this tournament, and last Tuesday proved it. They were embarrassing. I sure hope Steve Fisher didn't watch that performance. That's all I'm going to say. And as far as I'm concerned, if all 12 players go into the transfer portal, okay, fine. No big deal. We'll restart. I didn't see anything from any of those players. I mean, Guap came back. Everyone's super excited for him to return. First shot he puts up is a 3 with 25 seconds on the shot clock. Like, what are we doing, guys? So either the coaching has gone down or the players aren't responding to it. Either way, sad performance. But at the same time, 20 years ago, this would have been a season that they would have hung a banner for. And here we are, Aztec fans, upset about it. So really does kind of speak to where how far this program has come. But time to move on to some teams that actually deserve our attention as we switch our focus to the West region. And wow, we saw maybe one of the best games of the tournament. Again, wasn't a dramatic, buzzer beater, anything like that. But the Florida UConn game, goodness gracious, that was the new kid on the block coming up against the old head, and everyone thinks the new kid's going to run him out, and the old head stuck around. Unfortunately for Dan Hurley and the Huskies, though, Florida too much. Florida is moving on to the Sweet 16. They are, joined by Maryland. We already kind of talked about that buzzer beater over Colorado State. They demolished Grand Canyon in the first round. But do want to give a little shout out to Colorado State for taking care of business against Memphis. Texas Tech, they are the 3 seed. They are heading to the Sweet 16. Well, they have, of course, our perennial Cinderella, if you want to call them that. 75-66 winners over St. John's. And I had one bracket where St. John's was a Final Four team. That bracket, not ideal. But the problem that I had with this St. John's team, I just didn't expect it to happen so early. I knew if they were going to lose, it was going to be because they couldn't shoot. But Texas Tech will be facing off against Arkansas on the bottom side of the West region. These will be on Thursday. Yes, Thursday. Florida, Maryland gets us started at 7:40 Eastern, and then Texas Tech, Arkansas after 30 minutes after that. Raider Jim, your thoughts on the West region?
Yeah, congratulations to Drake for a great performance. I think they did very, very well. They got out of that first round, ran up against the Dynamo Texas Tech, but I'll tell you what, if I was a Texas Tech fan, I'd be very, very concerned about facing Arkansas, who not only showed what they can do against a high caliber team, they showed that they are good enough to be on the floor with any of the top seeds. And I think that they're going to give Texas Tech everything they can handle. Don't be surprised if Arkansas advances into the Elite Eight. Now, on the upper side of that, Florida, Maryland, that's going to be a pretty good game. But if I was a little kid, like, 9 years old or younger than that even, and I watched Florida play basketball, I would look under my bed before I went to bed, go to sleep that night, because they are just scary. What a fantastic team they've got there at Florida. And I don't see them having too much trouble with Maryland. They're going to have to play good. They're going to have to be no mistakes, but that's what they do. And they're so darn physical. So I think Florida is going to get out of that round. Florida, Arkansas could be one of the best matchups we see in this tournament.
Yeah, I personally, I don't see how anyone can take down Florida. Personally, I think Duke, you're power ranking these teams right now. Duke 1, Florida 2, and you could probably convince me of Florida 1. I was very impressed with Florida. And, maybe some people will say, oh, they should have beat UConn by more or this or that. That's the two-time defending champ with a very good head coach over there. Maybe not as good as he thinks he is, but still a damn good coach. And they took everything from UConn and they fought back. Todd Golden has been kind of came out of nowhere. This Florida team, I know there was some talk preseason, but it's kind of, time capsule seeing the Florida Gators as a 1 seed and dominating the way they are. Texas Tech is interesting to me, though. The length of Texas Tech could possibly be the reason, I think has to be the reason they do take down Arkansas and possibly Florida. Toppin is obviously a fantastic player, but it seems like every single one of their guards to forwards have a wingspan of, 6'10 plus. It's very, very impressive, but I just don't see anyone taking down Florida here. I just think they're way too good, too well coached. And again, when you see teams coming out of the SEC, and obviously Arkansas did as well, but they're so battle tested that it seems like they're not phased. Like, even if they faced Arkansas in the Elite Eight, that's like their 5th toughest game in the past 30 days. So I don't know. I don't think this team will be phased too much. And again, Maryland, good team. I don't think there are too many teams I give a chance to against Florida. And then, yeah, just kind of looking through this, UNC Wilmington, they pushed Texas Tech a bit. But at the end of the day, Texas Tech a little bit too much for them. But it's going to be an interesting regional semi and regional final. But I do expect Florida, Texas Tech. And Florida is just so good as we shift our attention across the country to the East region, and the aforementioned Duke Blue Devils really didn't break a sweat. Cooper Flagg actually did play in both of these games, to the surprise of a lot of people. All good. Duke dominates Mount St. Mary's, no big surprise. 33-point victory over Baylor. That was surprising to me. I expect them to beat Baylor, but 33 points, or excuse me, 23 points. Bad math over here. And then on the other side of that, I tell you what, watching Arizona, Oregon at 9:30 at night, at 12 after dark, I tell you, Bill Walton watching with a big old smile on his face. I don't care if that's a Big 10, Big 12 matchup. That'll always be the Pac-12 to me. But anyways, Arizona takes down Oregon in a very, very good game. They will get Duke in a matchup that I am salivating over. And then the bottom side of that, Alabama, another team that really, well, They weren't tested by St. Mary's. I thought St. Mary's was going to test them. I thought St. Mary's could beat them. They were never even close in that one. However, Robert Morris did give Alabama a bit of a run. They actually led in the second half of that one, but Alabama got the job done. They are heading to the regional semis to face the BYU Cougars, who put together, for me, the most impressive weekend of a non-top 4 seed. They dominated VCU, which I had VCU in the Elite Eight. They dominated VCU, and then they took care of business against Wisconsin. BYU be going up against Alabama in a very underrated matchup. That over-under might be 210. But anyways, Raider Jim, your thoughts on the East region?
Yeah, East region was good. It wasn't my favorite, but it's kind of hard to say that would be my favorite bracket when Duke is just dominating the way they are. I mean, you win by 40, you win by 23. You're doing whatever you want out on the court. And just like that bracket with Florida, you look up, down and you go, well, what are they really going to do next? Arizona played some good ball, better than I thought they played the first 2 rounds. I don't see Arizona going out there and giving Duke anything to worry about. That's just my opinion. Now, on the lower end of that bracket, I like BYU a lot. I like BYU going into it. I like BYU's chances to take care of business against Wisconsin, which they did. BYU against Alabama, that's going to be a little bit tougher of a job to pull off, but who knows? Stranger things have happened. Would be kind of interesting to see what kind of a tough game, as tough as they are and as physical as they can be, how well could they hang with Duke enough to at least, make the spread a little more competitive, if you will. But I think we're going to see Duke definitely against one of those guys, obviously. And for my money, I still think it's going to be Duke.
Yeah, as I kind of already laid out, Duke, for me, they dominated. Every team was pushed a little bit. Maybe, again, not to all the way, but even Florida, they got pushed by UConn. Auburn pushed a bit by Creighton. And obviously Arizona was pushed by Oregon. Duke was never in doubt this entire weekend. However, I really firmly believe, and I think you'd have to give a Duke fan or whatever truth serum for them to actually admit this. But there's one man on this planet, Raider Jim, that they fear more than anyone. And that man is Caleb Love, because he did a lot of damage to them. He actually, the last time we saw Duke in the Final Four, I want to say it was Caleb Love eliminating Duke and sending Coach K into retirement. Now, the only problem with Caleb Love is either going to go nuclear or missing. And there is very little in between. He was incredible against Oregon. Probably the only reason a huge reason why they took down Oregon. He's way too inconsistent for me. I would not be, if he drops 35, hold on. They still might, Duke still might get the victory. But that's their only way, is if Caleb Love goes nuclear. And again, there's still that Tar Heel blood that runs through him. I guarantee you he is not a fan of seeing Duke. So just keep that in mind. The other thing I did see, this is, I think, the 5th largest spread between a 1-4 Sweet 16 matchup. Duke 9.5-point favorite. So keep an eye on that. On the bottom side of this, BYU, Alabama. Just give it to me right now. I don't care about, for the most part, I don't really care about a whole lot else. This is the game that I think of the weekend. BYU, Alabama, 2 teams that just want to do one thing, and that's score. And generally, I don't like that, but when you get done watching St. John's, Arkansas, where they went, I think 3 for 41, and I think St. John's missed 17 layups. Every once in a while it is nice to see Alabama play no defense, but also shoot 45% from 3. So I think that game's going to be a lot of fun. I'm very excited to see it. I want to see Duke, Alabama. just for the contrast in styles, the contrast in coaching, the contrast in everything, the contrast in everything. I still think Duke comes out of this no matter what, though. I really do think that Duke is the best team in the country right now. And the fact that you're not having to answer questions about rust on Cooper Flag, I think that also helps a lot as well. So again, yeah, I say it's chalk, but the Duke's the 1 seed for a reason, folks. Moving on to the final region we will be covering, or final region in the tournament. It is the Midwest, and I tell you, that Houston Gonzaga game, I was thinking about you the whole time, Raider Jim. It was a fantastic basketball game. I know you're going to talk all about it. Houston did take down Gonzaga in that second round game, 81-76. They will be facing off against Purdue, who took care of High Point and McNeese State. I really thought High Point was going to give Purdue a run for their money. They showed bits of it, but at the end, Purdue just too good. They will face off against Houston. And the 2-3 matchup, you have good old SEC foes, Kentucky and Tennessee. This is a chalk bracket. 1 through 4 seeds. This is where you are. Raider Jim, I'm going to give you first dibs here. Obviously, the Midwest, your thoughts.
Yeah, and again, congratulations to the Gonzaga Bulldogs. They won the West Coast Conference, which they weren't supposed to do, but they did. They went to, they got out of the first round again, and Coach Few is still just, Hall of Fame caliber. He's going to be there in no time. Went up against Coach Sampson from Houston. Good friends. He knew Coach Sampson when Sampson was at Washington State, Wazoo. And so they've known each other. They've got a history, and one of them, and I think it was Coach Sampson, made the comment afterwards, it's really too bad that they had to be matched up so early in the bracket. And he said, it's too bad that there can't be a 1A and a 1B. And he said that Gonzaga was definitely, right there with them. Now, Gonzaga did not play the cleanest of first halves, and that's what bit them. And they could just never go back. You can't leave it down to the last shot against a team like Houston. You got to stick with them. You can't put yourself too far back. Gonzaga did, but they still came back. They got, now they lost by 5. The line on that game was Zags plus 4.5. So if you bet on that game, that wasn't a good ending, was it? But still, Gonzaga, congratulations to the boys for making it again. Houston, congratulations. They have a fantastic team. Running again, man. These boys can play ball both sides of the court. And I can't wait till they match up against Tennessee. And I'm going to go right to that game and tell you Tennessee's going to beat Houston when it comes right down to it. Now, I like Purdue, but I don't think Purdue has enough to take care of Houston. I think Houston's going to go ahead. They not by any means was Gonzaga a walk in the park for Houston, but didn't get them too drained. Kentucky and Illinois, what a game that was. Kentucky's actually playing very, very good ball compared to what we were talking about last year at this time. Kentucky's really turned it around, as did Louisville this year. But Kentucky did, a 9-point victory over Illinois. And Illinois was playing good basketball, but Kentucky against Tennessee liked the way the Volunteers play basketball these days. So it's going to be coming down to Tennessee, Houston. Tennessee gets the nod.
Interesting. Yeah, the Gonzaga run was great. Obviously, that first game, as bad of a first half as y'all had against Houston, you had such a good first half against Georgia. It was you almost kind of felt bad for Georgia at some point. It's like, guys, I never did. No, I didn't either. But, you're just kind of watching again because that's score bug. Like, okay, the game starts, I'm watching whatever game's about to finish, and you just, okay. 8-0 run. 11-0 run. It's 18-4. It's 33-11. Like, what is going on? And the Houston game, Houston gave Gonzaga every opportunity to just roll over and die, and they never did. They kept coming, fighting back, bloody, battered, bones sticking out, and they just would not stop until the ref stepped in, essentially. And again, Mark Few, that is not surprising. It's a little unfortunate because, again, it's the almost polar opposite of the way San Diego State went out. Not to bring it back to me, but to bring it back to me, because it's a situation of Gonzaga probably should have been seated higher. They should have probably been a 6 or a 7. And who knows, maybe we're talking about them in this right now. But San Diego State was in and performed like they didn't deserve to, while Gonzaga looked at their 8 seed and said, all right, fine. And went out, and again, it wasn't fair probably, but they fought their tails off, just fell a little short. Incredible program that Gonzaga has been going. And it's going to be a very interesting transition to this newfangled Pac-12. Yeah, that's a whole iceberg we haven't even really touched on yet, just because there's so many other like things that I don't think a lot of people have realized, that the Pac-12 is kind of quasi coming back. I don't even know if I understand it fully, but anyways, fantastic run from them. Now, in terms of this kind of region right now, Tennessee is very, very impressive. Kai Ziegler is a guard that I don't think any team in the country, professional or college, would scoff at having run their backcourt. The toughness, the IQ, it's all off the charts. They are an incredible team. There's just something about this Kentucky team. I don't know. They're the antithesis of what we've seen from John Calipari's team. They finish. They're a heady basketball team. They don't make stupid mistakes late, which, again, I don't put a whole lot of credence on Cal, but does come down to coaching at some point. And I think a big part of it is these guys are veterans. And yeah, they're all transfers, and it's very different. And again, there are a lot of people that might not like it, but that's the climate. And Kentucky is still a brand. I think Lamont Butler coming in and really bringing that San Diego State defense to things. I like Kentucky to take down Tennessee, and I can't believe I'm saying this, but I like Kentucky to go all the way through. I think Kentucky's a Final Four team. I'm very impressed with all facets of what they do. They don't do one thing exceptionally, but they do everything very well. And again, Houston, I think there are a bit of chinks in the armor. Purdue, I picked High Point to beat Purdue, so you can kind of understand where my thought process is with Purdue. I think they got lucky with the McNeese matchup. Maybe that air got let out of the balloon with the student manager with the boom box and all that stuff. And then Tennessee, I think the big thing is the ability to have 72 hours going from the round of 32 to the round of 16, or the Sweet 16, I should say, because you didn't have that. You win your round of 64, and maybe you have to wait 3.5 hours to figure out who you're actually going to play.
Right.
In this situation, you have 3 days, you have your advanced scouts. There is an operation that is being put forward. And I do think sometimes the Sweet 16 teams that win might not necessarily be the most talented, but they're the better coached. And with all due respect to Rick Barnes, I've been very, very impressed with Mark Pope. And a funny little nugget as well. So obviously, kind of the crazy coaching carousel got started with Coach Cal going from Kentucky to Arkansas. And then that domino got Pope from BYU to Kentucky. And then obviously BYU had to hire their coach. All 3 of those teams are in the Sweet 16. So everyone's happy. I love it when a story ends well. But the Midwest, I don't know. There's just something about this Kentucky team. And maybe they lose by 20 on Thursday. And I just have, I'm calling the editor saying, I need you to scrub that part. I need you to cut it all out. But I don't know. I'm entranced. I've drank the Kool-Aid on Kentucky, and I'm just hoping all that is promised is truly coming. But Raider Jim, any final thoughts as we wrap up this episode of the In the Paint podcast and get us ready for the Sweet 16 and Elite 8?
No short season or short madness for some of these teams. But again, the Aztecs, whether they deserve to be there or not, or whatever we think, they did get there. Could have been a better showing, but still they made it. So good for them. Also to the Aztec ladies who,
Yes.
boy, I don't know if you heard the final score on that one, but
Yeah,
something
it was.
like 103-48.
Yeah, pretty rough.
I don't know if Aztecs only put 3 people on the court or what happened there, but I think they played LSU, and LSU is just an absolute terror in women's basketball.
Yeah.
Also, the Lady Tritons, they went out in what was in essence the play-in game for March Madness, but by gosh, they did their thing, won the Big West, and they got to advance. And those men, the Triton men,
Yes.
you just can't say enough about the character of that team, the representation they had. It's almost a shame that even when they made it, even when they deserved to be there, even when they got so close, they still seem to be overshadowed a little bit by all the Aztec talk. So I think that's going to change in the next couple years if San Diego State doesn't right the ship and become a little more dominant in the Mountain West. We'll see what happens. And then uh, I don't know if the coach, I was going to ask you, do you think that the coach, Brian Dutcher, any chance that he'd be looked at by some of these colleges who are looking for somebody, the Xaviers of the world, the Oral Roberts even of the world?
I've always felt like certain coaches get to a point where they've said no so much that they don't get, like Mark Few, right? Or let's say Randy Bennett. You're going to sit here and tell me that Villanova has a coaching search and you're not going to call up Randy Bennett? Now again, I don't know if that's just because they know, hey, we called him 10 years ago or whatever, when it was 3 or 4 years ago, and he laughed at us, or whatever, or it's a well-kept secret they don't even call, or he just, I don't know. But I do think you get to a certain point, and I go back to Rocky Long and the football coach, and he was here and he was very successful compared to what we've got going on now. Very, very successful. He was gonna, look, he's only gonna score 70 points a season, but he's gonna go 10-2, and he's gonna put you to sleep watching it, but he's gonna be successful in the win-loss column. And then kind of out of nowhere, he was like, oh, I'm gonna go to New Mexico. And it was like, wait, what? But he has ties there. So, obviously I know Brian Dutcher essentially has ties to Michigan, but I think that was mainly because of Steve Fisher. I That's a very interesting, because I've always wondered about that, again, because of the Randy Bennetts and the Mark Fews. Like, these guys don't get called, really? Like, I find that hard to believe that UNLV is going to hire Josh Pastner and not, entertain the offer
Right.
of a Randy Bennett. Now, going from St. Mary's of Gonzaga to UNLV, you want to talk about a culture shock, but still, maybe not the best apples to apples there. That's a good question. I think a lot of what it is the age. I think once you get to a certain point, certain teams or programs, they look at Brian Dutcher and say he's probably got, what, 5 or 6 years left. And obviously I'm just spitballing here. But he's not 42, 43 years old. So I think that might be a part of it, but that'd be a great question for, if we ever get an athletic director on or something, to be like, is there just like an unspoken rule? There are some guys that aren't, really talked about, or you just aren't feasible for you? Because again, I have to imagine Duke can offer more money to Mark Few than Gonzaga. But again, I think a lot for them, it's matters a lot more than just the money side of it. But my final thoughts, I do want to switch kind of back to the women's side of things. And kind of an unfortunate situation. Unfortunately, I think it was last night. Yeah. Probably. I mean, I'm kind of ignorant. I know Paige Buchers has been really good. But for my money, the best basketball or women's basketball player, currently right now, at least at the collegiate level, JuJu Walkins, she tore her ACL last night, and it obviously, probably going to miss all of next year as well. And then question marks going forward. thoughts and prayers going out to her, obviously. And, you know, the outpouring of support has been great to see. But I do want to bring it to the other side because unfortunately, emotions do run high, and JuJu is she's a brand, she's an icon. You know, if you're a USC fan, you know JuJu. If you're a college basketball fan, men or women, you probably know JuJu. But the hate that the Mississippi player has been getting it's it's downright disgusting. And, you know, I mean, if you watch college basketball this weekend, you saw it seemed like every commercial break of, you know, the PSA of don't harass the players, don't harass the players, don't harass the players. It was a foul, and it's very, very unfortunate. But if you know anything about ACL injuries, their ACL injuries are non-contact injuries. There might have been contact on the play, but the ACL, something happens because structurally it just said no. And it's not because of another entity. There's no intent. And again, it's very sad that JuJu is hurt, and, you know, who knows going forward, but the hate that this young lady has been getting, and multiple, I mean, it almost boiled over last night. Very, very sad. And if you are one of those people that do think it's your prerogative to hop on to DMs or to Twitter or X or Instagram or Facebook and DM these athletes because they lost a bet for you or because they think you hurt your favorite player or something like that, like, I mean this, and I mean this constructively, but you're a loser and you need to fix that. Again, I mean that from the bottom of my heart. Like, you need to go talk to someone about that, because if, again, your first reaction is, I'm going to go harass a 22-year-old at the highest or at the, right. I'm sorry. That's not okay. I don't care what happened. No one held a gun to your head and made you put that bet in. No one held a gun to your head and made you DM this young lady probably very, very hateful things, for just playing basketball. Oh, and by the way, her dreams are also over because they lost. Mississippi State still lost by 30, even with that happening. So she's already probably not having a great day as well. So I just wanted to get out there. Obviously, mainly thoughts of prayers going out to JuJu, but to anyone out there who thinks it's okay to harass these individuals and athletes because of what they do on the court, get a life, seriously. But with that being said, thank you all so much for listening to this episode of the In the Paint podcast, presented by the First Off the Bench podcast network. Everyone comes off the bench. We are first. It is time for you all to go wash your hands and stop hating everybody. We'll talk to you all very soon. Take care.